military after World War II is making the military a social experiment. So that way,
And that's
it's a
the
jobs
issue. And that's the
program.
issue.
You can have your opinion on that, but if you're going to have a military at all, it should be at the very least capable of doing its primary job.
Exactly.
Maybe you can have it be a jobs program. Maybe you can have those kind of things, but you can't lose sight of the primary focus, which is break things and kill people.
Well, Phil, to tell you the truth, the military always has been a social experiment, at least to a certain extent. And the reason why I say that is because even if your military was all one race, say if it was all white, you're still bringing in a lot of guys from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of women too, city people, rural people, all that type of stuff there. Same thing if the military was entirely black or if the military was entirely Hispanic. However, what's going on today, I don't think this right here is a social experiment. It seems more like a public relations nightmare. However, it's also an extremely dangerous game that people are playing with our military. And I think it's time we have a conversation on why it is that nobody wants to join.
The more power you have in a system, the more the system tends to corrupt people. And a lot of people, like George Washington was a rare general by the fact that he walked away from being the Continental Army chief and walked away from being president. It takes someone who understands their personal limits and the ability to kind of rein themselves in. We really don't have that. And so when people get into uniform, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm just going to say it. People who get into senior positions in the military have to become politicians because their job becomes, especially their generals, not all generals, Blaine, just saying if you're watching, that generals tend to then become extensions of the corporate state that Eisenhower warned us about, military, industrial, congressional complex. And that's how
I tossed in that 47-second clip involving Tony Schaefer, T-Spooky. That's actually what he goes by. And T-Spooky is actually... he's actually got a moment in the International Spy Museum that I'll try to link the video to in the description box. It doesn't seem like it's that big of a moment, but still, if you're in the International Spy Museum, then obviously you did something. Also, to go on top of that, this guy right here used to work in the Trump administration. He's been in the military. I think he was in the Army for over 20 years. Officer, intelligence. The guy's pretty daggone rounded. And of course, there was a conversation that was had a little over a week and a half ago on this very topic. Now, before we go any further, I want to go ahead and say this. Before we get too deep into this video, there's going to be a certain section that was pulled from Crowder's little expose last week on the military and what's actually going on with DEI and stuff like that. And of course, he's catching a lot of flack from people over having one of his team members talk to a senior chief in the Navy supposed to be off duty, but definitely inside of a restaurant about what's actually going on. And of course, he's catching a lot of flack for that. Now, me personally, as a guy who's a veteran, I really truly don't have a problem with somebody doing an investigation, finding out what's actually going on, especially finding out where our taxpayer dollars are going. However, I'm going to be leaving this video right here from Nikki MGTV in the description box as well. I think Nikki had a pretty balanced take on the entire situation. By the way, now let's go ahead and get to the meat of this video. What T-Spooky was saying right there sounds a lot like a certain book called The Pentagon Wars. It's a book that I own. It's a book that was also used as a basis of a film on HBO, or right now it's still on Max, called The Pentagon War, starring Carrie Elways and Kelsey Grammer. I advise you guys check it out. It's actually a pretty good movie, and for the most part, it's pretty well legit and pretty well accurate. I advise you guys check that out. But of course, it's that type of stuff there that's kind of led us to where we are today. So overall, military recruitment is down. You've got politicians who are tinkering with the idea of possibly putting illegals in, military-age males that, of course, are crossing the border, and we have no idea where the hell they're eventually coming from. Me, personally, I don't think that's going to happen right now. And at one point in time, I used to be an advocate for... if you serve, you get your freedom, but of course, with that right there still comes parameters that, quite frankly, are not going to be met under this current administration. So at this moment in time, that is definitely a no-go. We should not be doing that. We should not just be bringing in people who have no real allegiance to the United States to fight on our behalf. The Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, who kicked up that idea. And of course, that idea has kind of had some Cold War tossed on it. But then again, at the same time, though, knowing this administration here, we really and truly do not know. By the way, this current administration is one of the biggest reasons why it is that nobody wants to actually join. But of course, the topic of social experiment always comes up when we talk about the military. And I'm here to tell you right now, When you join the military, when you enlist, you are going to be around people of all different types of backgrounds, races, all that type of stuff. And of course, after a while, guess what? You get used to one another. The guy next to you is your brother. Whether you like him or not, they are your brother, okay? There are several guys that I serve with who I know good and damn well did not like me when I was in with them. My branch was the Marine Corps. I don't think I have to bring that up very, very often because obviously, I'm not the type of person that puts that in every single video that I do. There are some people who actually make it a part of their identity here on the platform, but I'm not one of those guys, even though I do have a channel that does focus in on military movie reviews that we're about to start posting to again this week. It's been very, very much behind. And of course, the summer is going to be kind of difficult, but I'll talk more about that towards the end. The point is this right here. Nobody actually wants to join. And of course, it's got people wondering whether it is that we're going to be implementing a draft anytime soon. I'm not so sure, but definitely the military is extremely important. It is what actually provides us the freedom, let's just say it's what provides the security for us to actually enjoy the nation that we have. And even though we are losing our freedoms and our freedoms are currently under assault, we still remain the most free nation in the world, and a lot of that is because of the actual military. I'm not going to get into inter-service rivalry on this video or anything like that. We love to rip one another. Army guys love to rip Navy guys love to rip Marines love to rip everybody, Air Force guys love to rip this person. People like to call them the chair force, but yet at the same time, though, we all have our function, our own little job. It's all love. We all do that. Speaking of the Air Force, I'm going to go ahead and say this really quick. It's an actual compliment to them for a second. Because if you guys remember quickly, there was a guy whose post I put inside one of these videos a long time ago. I promise you I'll be on a quick second with this. He was asking the question, why does the United States not have an Iron Dome? He was upset about us sending more and more money to Israel, when in reality we're sending like 3 times as much money to Ukraine than we are Israel. Yet Israel's the country we're close. It was very, very crazy. And I responded to his tweet by saying, dude, this is just very, very ignorant and very dumb. We do have an Iron Dome. It's called the U.S. Air Force. You see, our doctrine when it comes to shooting down missiles that are fired at the U.S., especially nuclear missiles, the first thing we do is we send up planes. Why? Well, because they're more maneuverable. It's one of the reasons why we have so many Air Force bases located on both sides of our country, the East Coast and the West Coast. Just simply saying that that's our doctrine. But let's continue. I've been throwing a lot of things out there. We haven't actually gotten to what's came out recently. But speaking of that Crowder bit, that little Crowder clip that I was talking about, well, here's a little montage of some of the things that we've been seeing that's been pumped out by our U.S. Armed Forces and our actual leadership.
By his defense secretary and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, President Biden ended the ban on transgender troops today.
Hello. I'm Admiral Rachel Levine. Climate change is having a disproportionate effect on the physical and mental health of black communities.
Hi, I'm Major Rachel Jones, and what pride means to me is celebrating that diversity is our strength as a nation and as an army.
So for all of you out there, I ask you to set out your symbols of pride, share your pronouns in your email, particularly if you're a person who doesn't think they need to.
Here I am, very gender nonconforming in the traditional sense. Certainly 3 years ago when I came out as transgender, I was essentially ostracized.
The first transgender active duty Army officer in American history is now under arrest, accused of plotting to give the Russian government confidential medical information about U.S. military personnel.
And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it.
This is the story of a soldier who operates your nation's Patriot missile defense systems. It begins in California with a little girl raised by 2 moms.
You better have what I want. I don't say peace. I don't say thank you. I just do what I want.
Where we're making good progress designing body armor that fits women properly, tailoring combat uniforms for women, creating maternity flight suits, updating requirements for their hairstyles.
Oof. I mean,
it's pretty obvious that they're focusing in on the wrong things and not the mission. It looks like a public relations nightmare, and given the fact that our current administration, let's just go ahead and say that our current administration's overall incompetence, this was shown during the Afghanistan withdrawal, the botched withdrawal. 11 Marines were killed, a soldier, and of course also a corpsman. If you don't know what a corpsman is a U.S. Marine Corps medical personnel. They're in the Navy. They get stationed with Marines. But the point is this right here. This current regime is not trusted. Not trusted on any level. And let's also not forget the famous or the infamous how do I say, the infamous watch check. Or there's also this bit right here that I'm putting right here in the card for you guys to see that I'll try to put in the description box. Moment from the Sean Ryan podcast where one of the vets who has been wounded in combat actually was greeted by Biden, and it's pretty daggone disgusting. I would play a little bit here, but the truth be told is to get the full context of how bad the situation was, you would need to listen to the full 5 minutes, which, by the way, I'm not going to do, or else this video will get a copyright claim. But let's get back to the topic. Of course, since what you guys have seen, the U.S. Army in particular, and the United States Marine Corps, they've tried to pivot away from this. Now, the Marine Corps never really and truly went woke when it came to its recruiting. I mean, there was the incident of the woke sergeant major who got upset with Tucker Carlson over Tucker Carlson talking about certain types of gear, maternity wards. It's just some crazy, silly stuff that, quite frankly, should not have been much of an issue, but it just kind of showed you exactly where it was our military was putting the vast majority of their effort into. The fact of the matter is that our military right now looks like an absolute joke, and we're pandering to the wrong people. And what I mean by the wrong people, we're pandering to people who, quite frankly, would not want to join the military anyways. Then again, at the same time, it also goes back to that adage, get woke, go broke. But of course, a lot of people have brought up the fact that it's really get broke, then go woke, which I think could actually have some correlation to this. I'll briefly touch on it over the course of this video, but I'll probably do a much larger project on it at a later date. But basically the point is this right here. Ever since the ever since the Vietnam War, we have kept our military size itself relatively small. We've expanded when it comes to the world of technology. Of course, our weapons are top rate, state of the art, best in the world. However, we've also made a killing off of selling some of our secrets to other nations too, China in particular, and as well, even Russia too. A lot of books, a lot of receipts on exactly what was sold, and of course, the fact that we've also decided to, for whatever reason, give our enemies arms. It's almost like we're trying to kill ourselves. It's a very, very weird thing, very weird dichotomy. I can already hear somebody saying that we're selling these people obsolete weapons, but here's the thing. Those same obsolete weapons, I would like to have those just in case they are needed. I mean, you just don't toss things away, especially if you're in the military. You might want to keep everything on hand just in case. When you couple all this and the fact that our military has been getting smaller and smaller and smaller per decade as far as overall manpower is concerned, even though it's 1.4 million strong, and if you actually count the reserve force, it's really about 2.4 million altogether. And me personally, I am an advocate of a bigger military. I would like to see it get to at least 3.5. But I also don't want a political military, so once again, you got a bit of a quandary. My initial thinking on this entire social justice warrior push was that it was designed to make the military, maybe uber political. And then I realized that there could be a lot more to it than I initially thought. But let's watch this next video.
I got that romantic view of the military. You ever see the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so he's like a retired dude, and he's got a family, and his kid gets killed, and then he basically goes to a high-ranking guy who knows him, and he's like, if you'll join me, we will have you, and just writes him a commission and hands it to him. And then you have a legit guy with actual experience who's coming back to teach, to lead, and to win. And then you have today politicians trying to look good on camera, fit the corporate press narrative. Right. And it's not so much about being an effective leader in defense. And it's more so about, it seems very bureaucratic and managerial. It's just filling out the paperwork and getting the points on your name and all that stuff.
And we also need more trans representation in the military, of course.
And that, my friend, is without a doubt the biggest reason why it is that nobody wants to actually join. However, when you actually look at the entire thing, it gets a lot worse, but we'll be talking about that in this video, so stick around. So basically, all the people that we're bringing in and the people that we're allowing to do such transitioning on the taxpayers' dime, by the way, are non-deployable. Yeah, guys, I remember when Obama removed the don't ask, don't tell provision. You see, don't ask, don't tell basically meant that if you were somebody who lived, say if you were gay, for example, as long as you didn't tell anybody about it, nobody was going to ask about it. It was your own business. They didn't really truly care. And I remember that back in the early 90s when don't ask, don't tell was actually implemented, coincidentally, I think by the Clinton administration. I believe it was Clinton administration. I'll get some more information put in the description box for you guys. I'm kind of making this video with limited time. People were uproar about that because they believed that the U.S. military didn't have anybody who was gay that was actually in it. Every single military has had those, okay? The question is, to what extent? How pervasive is it? Now, me personally, I remember when that provision got removed, I was then at a community college going to school to be a paralegal, and it was a campaign issue in 2012 that Republicans, quite frankly, did not know how to explain away to the audience why it was that removing this provision was a very, very, let's just say it was a big time problem. It basically signaled to the rest of the world that the U.S., the very, very tough, strong U.S. military, United States Marine Corps, U.S. Army, Navy, it was all going to be a great big giant joke. That right there is, quite frankly, what they were basically signaling to the world. It's almost like, have you heard the expression, when somebody claims something, like somebody takes credit for something, but yet that thing they take credit for is not a good thing, but yet they act like it's a good thing? I remember when Obama came out and did an interview saying, look, I repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Dude, that's not a good thing. Now it looked like an absolute joke, and quite frankly, we're nowhere near as feared or respected. As a matter of fact, we're laughed at like crazy. And also something else, too, to go on top of that, there's also the phrase morale, not morals, morale, M-O-R-A-L-E. Men's fighting spirit. Part of that fighting spirit is the ability to, believe it or not, rip on one another, joke with one another, and say certain things to one another. Next thing you know, political correctness became a problem, and then you start hearing stories about how it is that men are requesting stress cards in the Navy because somebody said something that quite frankly hurt their feelings. Come to find out, the person that said something that hurt their feelings was just simply an NCO, an E4 or E5, giving an E1 or an E2 an order, a basic standard order. This right here can cause all kinds of problems with the chain of command. And of course, it's making our military look like a great big giant joke. Now, Jacob Peterson, on the other hand, I'm saying by name, and if you know who I'm talking about, he has the channel called The Preppers Bunkers Outdoors. It's now just Jacob Peterson. I advise you guys to go check him out. He's made a lot of very, very good videos about Black Rifle Coffee. And also, he's not the only one, but many other content creators have. He has asserted that the whole buddy bro concept is also giving men the wrong impression. And of course, when you go in and then you get back and you find the life is not exactly the way it's being presented by these guys here at BRCC, it's probably going to lead to a lot less people wanting to actually join.
So did you know that you could enlist, Tim, not that I think you'd want to become other than you are?
Yeah, they cut your hair, man.
Well, they would
shave my head.
They cut a lot of things.
Heavens!
Do you know that they now are using conversion to trans as an incentive?
A recruitment tool.
Yeah, recruitment tool.
Yeah, because they're.
I know people who are involved in that transition process. And by the way, once you're in, you can't deploy.
But is it really?
No, you can't. You're not usable. Are you kidding? You're on drugs. You've been cut. The things don't ever heal completely. You can't be used in the military for a purpose of military.
But is this
purpose?
Which branches?
All branches.
Even the Marines.
Yes.
Wow.
The Marines, I think, are more reluctant to bring people in, but all the branches have been permitted to bring in, using a tool of recruitment. If you want to be Tamisha, you could be Tamisha.
I think that Seamus hit the nail right on the head there. And I've said this in a lot of videos, especially videos on Gear Issue 33, that you're pandering to the wrong people. Just look at the military recruiting. Do you honestly think that the Emma Malone Lord ad that I'm showing you guys bits and pieces of here in the B-roll footage, do you honestly think that this fire brought anybody in? By the way, the military needs to look much, much more masculine. Now, the Marines, on the other hand, have not been woke in their advertising. As a matter of fact, I'm also playing another ad right behind that one that's kind of an example of an ad of how it should look. This is the ad that got me to join back in 2003. It needs to look a little bit more masculine. Do you see what I'm saying? You can't be an effeminate ad, and it can't be an ad that suggests it's a party. You can't do that and expect people to actually join. Yeah, you might have a girl here and there who may enlist, but you need actual men who are actually fighting in 40 units. By the way, the whole conversation of women being in field units and 40 units is a completely different conversation altogether. And there's several videos that are yet to come on that particular question, but I don't think that 5'1", 5'2", only weighing 115 pounds, needs to be humping a pack and a rifle with a bunch of grown-ass men, especially given the fact that she cannot pull her own weight or pull somebody twice her size in case somebody gets wounded or, God forbid, is on death's door. I'm just going to leave it at that there. But don't worry, there'll be more videos in the future about that too. And that's also something else that you got to understand. If you join the military and let's just say you go infantry and the person beside you is a woman, and I'm not saying this to make fun of the ladies, you're probably going to be more concerned with protecting her than you are the man next to you. It could create all kinds of problems in the field, especially if combat is to arise. But like I said, that right there will be explained in future videos. But let's get back to this next part.
Recently, I remember a few years ago they did a commercial where it's like the Army commercial, and it's someone being like, "I have 2 moms."
Yes.
And I'm like, what does that have to do with being in the Army?
has
right?
nothing.
But they changed it. And I recently saw a commercial for the Army, and it was like a guy in a swamp with a gun, wearing makeup, and actually doing more Army-sounding things.
But not drag makeup. That's the commercial they would have made 5 years ago.
Yeah.
No, but I guess the point is maybe they're starting to realize like our recruitment numbers are in the gutter.
They are.
Perhaps we should shift towards masculine, fun adventure.
Yes.
I think they're worried about an actual war. So
Yeah.
now they're like,
They're trying to get us into a war.
They're like, you know what? Let's put white males back in the commercials. Like,
No,
we think
no.
we might actually have
It
to
wasn't
fight.
like a-
Let's stop. Whatever. Men, instead of trying
Right.
to pander to marginalized groups or supposedly marginalized groups.
I do want to clarify something before I close this video down, something that T. Spooky said about pulling the men from the military. During World War II, it was mostly the Midwest. Nowadays, you're basically pulling men from everywhere. The state that comes to my mind right now, or the 3 states that come to my mind as far as overall military service, as far as men that I serve with, the 3 states that I can recall the most amount of men coming from, at least in my unit, came from Florida, Ohio, and New York, especially the city. It's pretty common. It's the biggest city of the nation, so you're probably going to have a lot of overflow from there. A lot of guys who joined who came from the Bronx, also a lot of guys who joined who came from Boston or Philadelphia. That's not exactly uncommon. There's also something else, too, you got to consider is that a lot of these people that are joining, and I've always said this prior before, it's not really and truly a blue versus red thing. That's not what the real divide in the country is. The real divide in the country is actually more between urban and those who live in rural small town areas or that's basically the real divide. You typically don't tend to find that in the military itself. So as I said before in the very beginning of the video, it is a bit of a social experiment. However, it's where it looks a lot more like a PR nightmare and just looks like a failed attempt at pandering. You see, if you advertise and you pander to certain groups that quite frankly are a joke to others, which they won't say out loud, they're not going to take you seriously. They're not going to want to join. However, there is something that will be coming up that probably may be the perfect storm, and I'm going to be explaining that to you guys right now before I end this video. This right here, of course, being the last part of it, I need to go ahead and come at you with some actual, let's just say, some extra realism of what you're about to see happen.
Numbers are atrocious. I mean, you could
They
probably
are.
talk about this better than I can, but one of the other problems is that the portion of the populations that qualifies to be recruited is extremely small, right? There are tons of people
Right.
who are disqualified immediately.
So the people traditionally who sign up are from the Midwest. During World War II, there was a study. Most of the folks who fought World War II were from the Midwest. They're patriotic, good old boys. We're in one of the good old boy states right now. And so the idea is you want to bring those people in because they don't mess around. They do what they're told, and they're able to achieve military objectives that are assigned. That's the military fundamentally kills people and breaks things. That's it. It's pretty.
The Midwest is like, sign us up.
Sign us up.
But there's a lot of focus from the military after World War II is making the military a social experiment, so that way
And
it's
that's
a
the
jobs
issue. And that's the
program.
issue. Right now, the world's in chaos. You've got an economy at this moment in time that is producing only part-time jobs. You got a lot of Gen Z males right now who are shifting to the right politically. Those jobs, by the way, are probably not going to be there post-2025 because what's probably going to happen, and it's probably going to happen before Trump gets in office, assuming he does win, but even if Biden remained president, or even after Trump got elected, the Fed would probably do this. They would probably cut interest rates, meaning that sometime in a year, you're probably going to see a massive economic collapse. This country needs hardcore reforms is what they need, especially military reform as well. And the call for men to be in the military is probably going to pick up, especially given the fact that a lot of these young men can't afford college. They can't go to college, can't go to community college, can't go to a university. Next thing you know, they can't really find a job somewhere because the jobs market's dead. It can stay dead for a very long time. So what the hell is available to them? The military. Not everybody can do YouTube and be successful. The point is this right here. It looks like the perfect storm. So this issue could, in fact, be remedied. However, I hope and pray that whoever the hell is in office, whoever the hell is running U.S. military recruiting, I'm talking about all branches, from the U.S. Army to the Space Force, I hope they understand that you need to cut this woke, pandering, social justice warrior crap out and get back to the mission at hand and training the men and women who actually serve this nation to make sure that they come home alive, because everything the current administration is doing is, quite frankly, putting these men's heads on platters without actually saying it out loud. Obama administration did that as well, but I'm going to leave it at that there. Now, I do want to give you guys a bit of an update as far as the health is concerned. I'm going to be going back to the doctor, obviously, before procedure. Certain appointments are going to pick up. So you're going to be seeing a lot more time where I'm not going to be here to actually post. So you're probably going to see a lot more videos of some. This is kind of what I want to do going into the video essays. And of course, that even though this is obviously something I've got to do to save my health and get my health a lot better, don't worry, I'll be fine. Obviously, it also presented me an opportunity to present to you guys better content as far as the editing and the overall information itself was concerned. With that, with that being said, please tell me what you think in the comment section. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video. You guys will be getting more and more updates on my end on how we're going to handle things through the summer. I am going to start back using the community tab, so make sure you guys stick around and go to the community tab. Apparently, for whatever reason, Facebook has not let me post any videos for some odd reason. But still, though, make sure you guys check out my community tab going forward, so that way you guys can actually find the newest video release. With that being said, please comment, please hit the like button, please subscribe, please share the video. Sign off, and I'll see you guys later.